The silence had weight now. Not just the usual comforting kind that hugged the submarine's steel bones like pressure from the sea, but the kind that felt watched. Commander Ellis hadn't slept in 19 hours. He didn't need to. The situation unfolding outside the hull was clearer than any dream. Someone, or something, was matching their patterns, echoing their vibrations, following without being seen. Inside, systems remained idle. All non-essential processes on pause. No active sonar, no transmissions. USS Bradford had become a ghost. But still, the shadow followed. In engineering, Lieutenant Ramirez reviewed data with brows furrowed. We've got micro-reflections across external water intake grills. Same frequency as our onboard scrubbers. Only reversed. Ellis leaned in. Meaning? They're copying us. Down to the frequency. Could be trying to map our layout by mimicking what we echo. Or trying to pretend to be us. Ellis didn't blink. Or learning how we sound, in case they want to sound like us. In the mess, the crew sat mostly in silence. Even off-duty chatter was subdued, like the ship itself demanded obedience. No one spoke of Harmon, but they all remembered. You didn't forget the guy who pulled a lever during silent drift. But in Auxiliary Bay 2, Harmon hadn't forgotten either. He was still scrubbing pressure valves when a soft rhythmic knock echoed. Through the pipe overhead, not from inside, from outside. He froze, then listened. It came. Again. 3 knocks, evenly spaced, not metal on metal, something softer. He looked at the pressure gauge. No spike. Temperature? Normal. Still, something had touched the hull. Instead of reacting, he did something he hadn't done before. He waited and listened. The knocking stopped. Silence returned. Then, one knock, different rhythm, short, long, short. He blinked. Morse? He grabbed the emergency maintenance pad and keyed in what he heard. TET? He checked it again. Not quite. Maybe not a word, maybe just a sound. He pressed the intercom. This is Seaman Harmon, Auxiliary Bay 2. I'm picking up rhythmic knocks on the starboard intake pipe. Non-mechanical. Possibly acoustic contact from external source. There was silence. Then the voice of Commander Ellis came through, calm and clear. Stay where you are. Don't move. Repeat the rhythm to Lieutenant Ramirez. He's en route. 5 minutes later, Ramirez arrived with a handheld hydroacoustic mic. He pressed it gently to the outer pipe wall and listened. At first, nothing. Then, tap, 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 pause, tap. He looked at Harmon. You didn't imagine it. No, sir. Ramirez activated the comm to the bridge. We have verified. External acoustic interaction. No scraping, no bounce back. It's communication. Back in the control room, now monitoring passive sonar, spoke up. Sir, the shadow contact's movement just matched our last power cycle. They're sinking again. Ellis stood. They're not just tracking us. They're testing our patience. He looked toward the ceiling, as if the sea above could hear him. Do nothing. Sir, Ramirez asked over comm. Log every tap. But don't reply, not yet. In Auxiliary, Harmon sat on the floor beside the pipe. He watched the steel, then he leaned in closer and whispered, You're not getting anything out of me this time. Ellis crossed the bridge. Begin preparing a looped internal systems decoy. We'll fake a pressure imbalance. Send it through. Secondary coolant. Make them think we're running diagnostics. I want to see what they do when they think we're weak. Grace replied. Understood. Routing now. Reported. They're holding distance. Still no propulsion signature, which means they're gliding, or not alive at all. Ellis stared at the sonar screen. You don't test a sub's character with torpedoes. You test it with silence. Hours passed. The rhythmic taps faded. The contact drifted back, still shadowing but not probing. That's when Harmon, still awake, heard it again. Only this time, it was inside the pipe. A lower thud, like a suction. He radioed again. "Sir, I think it's drawing from our wake current." Back on the bridge, Grace looked up. "If it's feeding on our flow, it's not just copying. It's using us." Ellis didn't hesitate. "Cut. Power. Full stop. Kill all active flow." USS Bradford became a dead shape in the water. For 2 minutes, there was nothing. Then sonar pinged softly. "Contact. Gone." Ramirez exhaled. "We cut its fuel." Ellis didn't move. "No, we cut its curiosity." He tapped the internal comm. "Harmon, report to command." "Yes, sir." Minutes later, Harmon stepped onto the bridge, his uniform still damp from work, his face pale but focused. Ellis turned to him. "You heard something no one else did. Again." "Yes." "Sir, you didn't touch anything." "No, sir." "You did the hardest thing on a sub." "Nothing." Harmon nodded. Ellis placed a hand on his shoulder. "That's what makes a sailor." A sudden clang broke the sacred silence of the USS Bradford, deep in the Pacific, 760 feet below the surface. The kind of silence that doesn't just define submarines, it sustains them. It wasn't an explosion, just a sharp metallic sound. Too loud, too sudden, and in a place like this, that was enough. Commander Ellis turned his head slowly, eyes narrowing. His crew froze. The red-lit control room, bathed in dim emergency hues, felt colder than usual. Then came the second sound. A lever, wrongfully pulled. Hydraulics hissed. A low whine surged through the pipes, followed by a status alert that blinked yellow on the central console. All eyes turned. Seaman Harmon stood wide-eyed at the ballast control station, his hand still hovering over the manual override lever. "No." One spoke. They didn't need to. "Let us know in the comments which branch of the military you admire most." Commander Ellis stepped forward with the kind of calm that makes your spine straighten on instinct. "You engaged emergency ballast override." "During silent drift," he said. "Yes, sir," Harmon muttered. "Why?" I thought we were listing slightly to port. I saw the bubble tilt on the inclinometer. I thought." "You thought?" Ellis didn't raise his voice. "Do you know how much noise that actuator made?" "No, sir." "Do you know what's 2,200 meters off our stern right now?" Harmon stayed silent. "Neither do I." The room remained still. "You don't make noise down here unless the order comes from me. Or from God. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." "Get off the bridge." Harmon's boots echoed against the metal deck as he left. The door sealed behind him with a hydraulic hiss louder than necessary. Ellis turned to sonar. "Status? No. Active sonar pings. Passive reads clean. Drop 10 meters. Rebalance manually. And next time anyone here sees a tilt, you report it. You don't fix it." The crew nodded without a word. 2 decks below, Harmon changed into maintenance overalls and reported to waistline duty. Steam hissed around him as he scrubbed and hauled, his mind replaying the sound over and over, the click, the hiss, the alarm. The silence that followed was worse than yelling. It was condemnation. In the control room, Commander Ellis leaned over to Lieutenant Ramirez. "Mark this down." That lever squealed. "I want it greased twice a week." Ramirez nodded. "You think we were heard?" Ellis stared at the map. "I think if something was close, it knows where we are now." 3 hours later, during low-power drift phase, sonar picked up a faint anomaly, a repeating acoustic pattern, not sharp enough to be an active ping, but too precise to be natural. "What is that?" Ellis asked. "Could be a probe, or a drone running passive sweeps. Bearing? 190, holding distance, just trailing." The commander's face didn't change. "Maintain course, don't react." But in the utility bay, Harmon didn't know what was happening. He was on hands and knees cleaning a pump seal when the lights shifted to deep red. Silent combat mode. He looked up. No sirens, no voices, just red light and the slow pulse of danger. He paused. and waited. Back in the control room, the sonar trace disappeared, then reappeared. Closer. Ramirez whispered, "It's not random. It's pulsing on our system's cycle." "They're syncing to our internal clock," Ellis said, "which means they're listening." The next decision would be critical. He could surface. He could fire countermeasures. But instead, he looked to the crew. "No sudden moves. Let them think we don't know they're there." He tapped the console and sent an internal message. "All hands, maintain discipline. We're not alone." Down in the maintenance bay, Harmon read the alert on a flickering panel, and this time, he didn't move. He didn't react. He stayed quiet and listened. The USS Bradford had been adrift for over 12 hours. Every light was dimmed, every breath controlled. Even the vibration from the ship's systems had been tuned down so precisely, it was as if the sub was holding its breath. Seaman Harmon now sat in the acoustic relay bay, not as punishment, but as assignment. He wasn't told to interpret. He wasn't told to decide. He was told to listen, and he did. For hours, he sat with the earpiece in, eyes locked on the waveform monitor, fingers hovering over the relay log, noting every anomaly with the kind of precision that didn't come from rank, but from fear forged into discipline. In the control room, Commander Ellis stood with arms folded, staring at the sonar display. "Any movement?" "None," Ung replied, still shadowing, "just outside active bounce range." Grace turned from the reactor diagnostic screen. "Sir, I'm starting to wonder if they're not just mimicking systems." "Go on," Ellis said. "They may be trying to test our judgment. Like, how long we'll hold back? If we'll break pattern, lose discipline?" Ellis gave a subtle nod. "Because discipline isn't just our weapon. It's our identity." Ramirez added, "So what happens when they know what makes us tick?" Ellis answered without blinking. "Then they'll know what happens when they push us." Meanwhile, in the acoustic bay, Harmon sat up straight. Something had changed. The sound wasn't knocking. It wasn't vibration. It was modulation. A slow, low pulse, like a hum rising and dipping but with rhythmic pauses. He tapped the console, began translating the waveform to frequency notation. It matched none of the ship's internal systems. He routed it to the bridge. "Commander, this is Harmon. I've got an external acoustic modulation. It's consistent, measured, and it's following our power curve, even though we're at zero propulsion." Played it aloud. Everyone heard it. Ramirez's face changed. "That's a response," Grace whispered. "To what?" Ran a loop-back diagnostic. "To our system's decoy, the one we faked earlier. It's not just mimicking us, it thinks we're talking." Ellis stepped forward. "Send a false loop, sir. Play back a slightly distorted version of our own pattern. Let's see if it repeats it back again." Ung keyed in the transmission. The sub stayed dead quiet, but the acoustic mimic pulse was routed through ballast resonance only, undetectable to standard sonar. They waited. 10 seconds passed. Then the EI pattern returned, but different. NG's voice was sharp. They changed it, slightly. They corrected it. Ellis's eyes narrowed. "They understood the error," Grace whispered. "It's not learning from us. It's teaching itself. Through us." In the relay bay, Harmon sat back, heart pounding. He didn't say a word. He didn't want to distract the ship. But the truth was sinking in. Whatever was out there wasn't just following. It was communicating, and doing it through their discipline, like a child learning to speak by watching a parent's face. Back in the control room, Ellis gave a new order. "Prepare a termination signal. No threat. No warning. Just a sudden dead stop. I want to know what they do when the system goes black." Ung looked at him. "You want to ghost them?" "I want to disappear so hard they feel alone." 5 minutes later, all decoy systems cut. No hum, no loops, no pings, only the natural silence of a sealed, pressurized vessel sitting motionless in the dark. Then came the return, a single long-frequency pulse, not a mimic, not an echo, just one sound, a goodbye or a warning. Na's face was pale. "Sir, contact has broken off, moving to depth, descending fast." "How fast?" Ellis asked. "Too fast to be manned." Ramirez blinked. "Sir, are we saying this wasn't human?" Ellis didn't answer. He just whispered, "Prepare ascent, let's go home." Later, on the surface, after sunlight filled the deck and crew breathed easy again, Harmon stood beside the bridge rail, watching the calm sea. Commander Ellis joined him. "You listened." Harmon didn't answer. "You didn't try to solve it. You didn't try to guess." "I just followed the pattern, sir." Ellis nodded. "You followed the mission. You followed the silence." He patted Harmon's shoulder. "That's what separates sailors from soldiers." The USS Bradford surfaced under a pale gray sky. Seabirds circled overhead, unaware of the silent encounter that had just unfolded far below them. The sub's antennae extended, comms reactivated, and systems powered back up one by one. But inside the vessel, something had shifted. It wasn't just pressure or power, it was the crew. They had endured a test of silence, of patience, and of presence. And they had passed, not because they fought, but because they refused to flinch. Seaman Harmon stood quietly at the sonar console now, not because he had earned a promotion, but because he had earned something harder, the commander's trust. Lieutenant Ramirez approached, holding a tablet. "New orders came in. Debrief scheduled in 36 hours. Commander Ellis nodded. "Good. Let the brass wonder what we won't say." Ung turned from her station. "No explanation from Fleet Command?" "None. They acknowledged our sonar logs." "That's it." Grace shook her head. "So, they knew something was out there." "They always do," Ellis muttered. Later that evening, after all systems had returned to standard ops and the crew rotated through rest cycles, Ellis made a quiet announcement over the internal comms. "All hands, report logs for final encryption. Mission log will reflect abnormal contact, no aggression, no return pings, no systems compromise, end record." He paused, then added, "Good work, all of you." In Auxiliary Bay 2, Harmon heard it. He closed the diagnostics pad in his hands and looked around the dim compartment. He hadn't spoken much since the incident, and he didn't need to. He had done the most Navy thing of all. He had listened. Hours later, as Ellis walked the corridors alone during routine inspection, he stopped outside the mess hall and saw Harmon sitting alone, sipping from a cup of coffee. He stepped in. "Seaman." Harmon stood up quickly. "Sir." At ease. Ellis sat across from him. "You heard a pattern?" "Yes, sir." "You reported it?" "Yes, sir." "You didn't act on it?" "No, sir." Ellis leaned forward. "Why not?" Harmon's response was slow, steady, because it wasn't my job to decide what it meant, just to make sure someone smarter heard it. Ellis cracked a smile, not wide, but sincere. That's the kind of answer that keeps submarines alive. He stood. "I've put your name forward for comms specialization training. You'll remain with us until your rotation is approved, if you want it." Harmon blinked. "Yes, sir. Thank you." Ellis turned to leave, then paused at the door. "You made a mistake." "Yes, sir." "And you didn't repeat it." "No, sir." Ellis nodded once. "That's Navy." As he walked out, the door sealed behind him, and Harmon sat back down, still, quiet, but no longer unsure of himself. He wasn't fast. He wasn't flashy. He was ready, and that was all the ocean ever asked. The Navy. Mistakes aren't punished. They're remembered. Because under 800 feet of water, there's no room for pride, no space for panic, and no tolerance for ego. Seaman Harmon pulled a lever he shouldn't have, but what defined him wasn't that moment of weakness. It was what came after. He listened. He waited. He didn't act out of fear, and that, more than anything, made him a sailor. So we ask you, what would you have done in Commander Ellis's place? Would you have thrown the rookie out, or given him the silence he needed to become someone stronger? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story of discipline, leadership, and silent strength inspired you, subscribe to Authority Watch and tap the bell icon. We bring you true lessons from the deep, where words don't lead, but actions do. This is Authority Watch, and down here, discipline isn't a suggestion, it's survival.